So, today we're... I can't believe I made that. Today we're talking mains. With the War Within right around the corner, I wanted to take some time to express what I'm going to be playing to you guys and why I'm going to be playing it, and talk about a few alts that I plan on eventually mixing in. So without further ado, let's dive in. So it's probably going to come to no surprise that I do plan on playing Brewmaster Monk in the War Within. This has been a tank that I've pretty much identified with pretty much since the start of Dragonflight. I played it a little bit back in Shadowlands and a little bit in BFA, though I was much worse at it back then. But over the course of, I would say Dragonflight Beta, end of Shadowlands Dragonflight Beta, I really found a home on the class. And it's a class that, as weird as it might sound, I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, is it's a class that just has always clicked with me. I've always enjoyed playing it. And it's a class that I can play over and over and over again, especially as a Mythic Plus player, and generally just enjoy what I'm doing. Going into the War Within, there's actually some good changes that are occurring, both in the class tree, in the spec tree, and with hero talents. Also, on top of that, due to the rework, they have removed a lot of arguably more the annoying elements of the class, things like Bone Dust Brew, even though I actually enjoyed Bone Dust Brew. Rushing Jade Wind isn't as much of an importance because of the removal of Resonant Fists. White Tiger Statue is now gone. Chi Wave is now passive, though you're probably going to still play Chi Burst for obvious reasons. But basically, they took kind of all the annoying parts of the class, and they really boiled it down into this very simplistic, very fluid rotation. Shado-pan, with the recent, I guess, buffs, or I guess more like fixes, Blizzard has made Shado-pan a lot more compelling, especially in Mythic Plus content, but Master of Harmony also feels good in its own regard. I'm going to do a video in the near future breaking down the pros and cons of each and when you would probably play either of the two specs or the two hero talents tree/sub specs. For the most part, both of them are fairly similar in power. It doesn't take a lot of effort to play either of them well, though there are, I guess, skill ceilings to each of them. So it adds a little bit more layers into the class. And the class is this perfect balance of, it's complicated, but it's not too hard to understand once you understand it. That doesn't make sense at all, does it? It's a class that has a fairly complex rotation, but once you understand the class, it's very enjoyable and very rewarding. Something else that I do want to talk about, actually, is off specs. In this case, we're going to be talking about Windwalker a little bit here, so bear with me. The Windwalker actually got a pretty significant rework, and holy hell, it's so fun to play. I've always been someone who's played Windwalker in Shadowlands. I think the highest key I ended up doing in Shadowlands was a 26, 27 on Windwalker. I played it a fair bit over the course of Dragonflight, intermittently, here and there, and definitely a different level of keys. Everything from, your plus 10s all the way up to your plus, I don't know, I think the highest key I did in Dragonflight on Windwalker was a plus 24. And then obviously they changed how scaling works, but generally speaking, it's been very, very enjoyable. The worst part about the spec over the last 2 years or so has been the RNG element of Dance of Chi-Chi procs. You can run an identical dungeon back to back with the same comp, the same pulls, the same cadence of the entire dungeon. And based off of your Dance of Chi-Chi procs, you would have this massive 10%, 20% damage difference just depending. So that was a little annoying, but Blizzard has done a pretty good job with the rework fixing that. Now, my testing with Windwalker has been pretty minimal. It's pretty bare, but the little bit that I've done on training dummies and the little bit that I've done in keys, specifically with Shado-pan, it's so fun to play. It's just very enjoyable. It has a nice cadence to it. You're not really... I don't feel as energy starved anymore. There's a slight issue with maybe you're actually abundant with resources, so you feel like you're overcapping chi. Sometimes you feel like you might be overcapping energy, but generally speaking with Shado-pan, it's just fun. It's good around fun. It's a nice paced spec. It's not like Fury Warrior where you're button smashing. You're just playing this very organic class, and it's very fun. So basically, all in all, I'm going to be playing Monk. Primarily Brewmaster, especially in Raid and Mythic Plus, but I'm going to be dabbling in Windwalker probably more than I've done in the past. So you might catch me on stream doing that every once in a while. I don't think I'll ever make videos on Windwalker because I'm just dumb. I'm not that good, but it's fun. I do want to talk about Protection Warrior though. And this is a class I'm probably going to be playing pretty aggressively as an alt at the start. And what I mean by aggressively is I'm going to probably giving an close to equal amount of attention going into the new patch as much as I can. The thing that I like about Protection Warrior is that the two hero talents that they've introduced are very reminiscent of BFA Warrior, which is the first time I ever actually played Protection Warrior, and I've fell in love with it then. I put it on the bench for a very long time until the end of Shadowlands, where I picked it up again, and it was a very, very fun tank to play, especially with Conqueror's Banner and all that fun stuff, Flushcraft. With Mountain Thane is it basically seamlessly fits into how it's been playing for the last, over the course of Dragonflight, and it's more reminiscent of how it played back in BFA as well. It's very Thunderclap spammy, it has high avatar uptime, all around, it's fun, and it's not really adding anything new, outside of making the rotation actually feel very fluid. There's always a concern with haste-based tanks at the start of a patch where, if you don't have haste, it's not going to feel good. You're not going to have ignore pain uptime. You're not going to have 100% shield block uptime. And there's these different things that you have to keep in mind when it comes to like secondary stats early on in expansion. But in the case of the warrior, especially with Mountain Thane, you don't really have to worry about that. Rage generation is through the roof. You're getting because of high uptime and avatar, you're just basically thunderclapping your way to victory. Thunderclap, and aka Thunder Blast, is doing a ton of damage, and it just all around feels good. But I've been enjoying Colossus more than Mountain Thane, and I enjoy Mountain Thane a lot. Colossus introduces a new ability into the kit called Demolish. Demolish slaps. It obviously has some very good scaling when you pair it with like Avatar and Demoralizing Shout, and if you pair it with like things like Champion Spear, you can get some very, very nasty big hits. It applies a DR. It also makes you deal more damage to the mobs. There's a cooldown reduction component to it. It's basically everything that you want in a class, especially with the identity of Prot Warrior, that just makes it very fun. What I also like about Warrior, not specifically focusing on protection, I also love how Fury feels right now. I haven't really touched arms, though I'm typically more of an arms DPS enjoyer compared to Fury, but Fury feels very, very good right now. Both Slayer as well as, actually in this case, it's Mountain Thane for Fury, feel game changing. It's very fun. You have these very high burst windows every 45 seconds, and with how dungeons are being pulled early on in the season, a lot of your pull counts are set to 5 targets, maybe a little bit more depending on the dungeon, depending on the tank, depending on how comfortable your group is. But generally speaking, for a Pug DPS, Fury Warrior feels insanely good, especially because you're not pulling that big, and it's a class that arguably is still fairly target capped. You're just pumping all the time, especially with Mountain Thane. Like, you add Thunderclap into the rotation, you kind of, maybe I'm wrong about this because I'm bad as a DPS. I play DPS very casually. Your Thunderclap replaces your Whirlwind, so you're not doing that anymore. So the rotation feels a lot more fluid because you're getting the empowered procs of Thunderclap, which is Thunder Blast, and it's, again, a ton of rage gen, so you're rampaging almost frequently. You have almost 100% uptime on Enrage, at least for my testing. And yeah, just it's very fun. It's very fun to level as. It's going to be fun to do dungeons. So those are the two tanks that I'm really like leaning towards, or the classes that I'm leaning towards. Now, obviously, I'm mostly a Mythic Plus enjoyer. I do raid Mythic, but with Mythic Plus in mind, there's obviously kind of the question of like, what's going to be meta, or am I going to try to play meta? Now, with recent tuning, there's obviously everything's still kind of up in the air, but Protection Warrior is looking like really good, hence why I'm kind of bringing it up as that alt. It's always been the tank that I enjoy playing the most outside of Brewmaster, at least in recent years. So my hope is that if it is end up being good, I do have a tank just in case Brewmaster ends up not being able to do the things that I need it to do by the end of the season, because I don't know what my plan is yet. I don't know if I plan on pushing. I don't know if I plan on doing what I normally do and end up just like pushing for a few weeks and then just stopping. Either way, having two tanks that I would say are pretty powerful in my, arsenal will be just make for a good season, I guess. And my last little sleeper pick, and this is going to be my little passion project on the side, and this is kind of a dark horse choice, is Protection Paladin. Protection Paladin, from what most of you probably know, is utter dog shit. There's a lot of things working against it right now. The tank nerfs, probably they felt the most from the tank nerfs out of all the tanks. Word of Glory healing hasn't scaled well. They've gutted their uptime on all their defensives to the point where sometimes you even have to double up defensives. Consecration feels very weak, and standing outside of Consecration makes you feel even weaker. So there's a lot of problems with it. But I really enjoy both the playstyle of Lightsmith as well as the playstyle of Templar, despite, common sentiments from the community. So I'm going to be working on Paladin in the side, and this is kind of in hopes that it ends up getting buffed. We've seen Protection Paladin, especially in like the first season of Dragonflight, go from being pretty much the worst tank to being the best tank like overnight. So I'm hoping that maybe, we'll see, that Protection Paladin does get the love that it deserves, that it needs, and hopefully it pays off. On top of that, Holy Paladin seems to be the one tank, especially with the rework, Holy Paladin is the one healer after the rework that they got over this beta cycle that actually looks very fun to me. So basically, I'm going to have 2 very fun tanks that I enjoy playing. Well, I guess 3. I'm going to have 2 very fun melee DPS that are looking very strong and very enjoyable to play, especially after kind of their reworks as well as their hero talents being implemented. And I'll have my healer. And if I want to dabble in Mistweaver, I can. I haven't really played Mistweaver. You know, I've played it, but I haven't played it. I'll have basically 2 healers, 2, maybe 3 DPS. I don't really have any attraction to Rat Paladin. I haven't really played it since Shadowlands. Their rework that they did in Dragonflight made them look really good. But basically, I'll have 3 tanks, 2 DPS, 1 healer, maybe 2. So that's my plan going to the new expansion, The War Within. Things might change. Tuning might change. I've been kind of in this like weird realm where I'm kind of like testing very late now on beta some of the DPS specs. So if something ends up piquing my interest a little bit more, I might end up swapping this list. But as of right now, you're going to probably see me playing a lot of Brewmaster and Protection Warrior. I'll be pushing out guides and I'll be streaming and, you know, commentaries, all my normal content that I normally do. And you'll probably see me dabbling on Protection Paladin. So I hope my kind of reasoning for playing certain things might inspire you to play the class that you want to play. I hope it gives a little bit of insight on maybe the content you're going to see on this channel going forward until I have maybe a little bit more free time. But ultimately, let me know what you want to play down in the comments below. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this video. A massive shout out to all my Patreon supporters, because without you guys, I wouldn't be able to make content like this. I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.